men. And I use the term in a manly way today because we're going to be boring this K-model cylinder. But before we talk about boring a cylinder, we have to talk about this, the old quick way cylinder boring machine. Interestingly enough, I did a video called I'm Bored, I don't know, at least a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And to date, it has been my most popular video. I think it's got something like 5,000 views, 47 or 57 likes. It's kind of a long video, and frankly, it's boring. It's about boring cylinders at a boring machine. You can't get much more boring than that. But anyway, people liked it. And I've got to do a couple of things before I bore this, before I bore these flathead cylinders. And just FYI, I think this is a Quickway Model F, and I think it's from the late 40s. It's got a serial number that begins with F, so that leads me to think it's a Model F. Anyway, you guys who know Quickway boring bars, if you want to shed some enlightenment on that and tell me exactly what the hell this is, I'd appreciate it. It's a little old, it's a little crusty, but it really seems like it works pretty well, and I'm very happy with it. This was an eBay find. I think it cost me $400, $600. I don't know. I've had it for quite a while, several years, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. We're going to talk about this next, and this would be the base upon which the boring machine sits. And the reason it's over here on my workbench upside down is because I don't have a way to mount flathead cylinders to it just right yet. So let me show you how this thing is set up for what I use it on now, which is IronHead cylinders. This is the hole I use for boring Sportster cylinders. And just to show you how this works, I have a 1000cc gasket over here, and I set it up over here to do 1000cc cylinders. Of course, the front is the opposite of the rear, so you flip the gasket around to simulate a rear one, and then another set of holes lines up. So I could do front and rear on the 1000s, and then on the 900s, I have a similar arrangement. I got a set of holes that lines up. You flip it over to do the simulate the other cylinder, and I got another set of holes that lines up. And the way I identify which is which is when I drilled and tapped these, I stamped them. So this has 9F and 9R, so this hole is used for the 900s front and the 900 rears. This one is stamped 1R and 1F, so this hole is used for the 1000cc fronts and the 1000cc rears. So all the holes are marked all the way around. And of course, when it's on the stand, I'm trying to read those upside down with the mirror, so it's a little tricky to do. Anyway, that's the 900s. The K-model jugs are too small for this hole. And of course, none of the holes line up. So, well, one will line up, but then the other two or three won't. So I got to use another hole. Okay, fortunately, this platform has many holes on it. And I think this hole is going to be the one I use for these K jugs. And I think I'm going to use two holes. The gaskets are the same front and rear. So when you flip it over, the front becomes the rear becomes the front. So if I drill two holes, I'll be able to bolt the jug down with two holes. I think the K-model jugs are sufficiently rigid that two holes will suffice as far as it means to bolt the cylinder down and maintain good accuracy on it. And these K-model jugs don't flex like the wimpy ass aluminum ones on an Evo do. So, these things were not bored originally with torque plates and all that kind of stuff, so I think they'll be just fine. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to drill a couple holes over here, tap them for studs to bolt the K cylinders in there, then I could put this back on the stand, And then we're going to take a little bit of that boring bar machine apart, and there's some innards in there I want to look at just to check up on them. My tap chart says to use a 5/16 drill bit for a 3/8 16 hole. So that's what's in there, 5/16. And that's the bottom of the hole. These gadgets, extremely handy. And that's that. One down, one to go. Okay, rather than just using the gasket, because there's, there's slop in there, there's quite a bit of slop, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to put the cylinder on, or a cylinder on, and I'm going to put a nut on one side, and looking down through the top of the cylinder, I'm going to approximately center the cylinder in the hole. I'm going to snug this down, and I'm going to come in and scribe this hole so that I know exactly where it ends up. I'd like to use a transfer punch, but the cylinder's in the way, and I can't get a transfer punch in there. Alright, so let's see if my scribe mark looks like it's in a good spot or not. So actually my scribe mark is a little bit off from where the gasket would have had me draw the hole. Okay, that looks good. Looks pretty good to me. Should work. Let's drill the other one. And you guys, if you've watched many of my other videos, have heard me rant about taps. This particular tap is from a company called Travers Tool Company. Not sponsored. It is their house brand, and it is an order of magnitude of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 times better than the taps you get at Harbor Freight or a hardware store. The sets you could buy every tap in the world for $39. Believe me, if I was using one of those taps on this, it would not be cutting like this. Right now, this is cutting as if it was going through butter. Those crappy ass taps will not do that in any way, shape, or form. They're junk of the worst kind and should be avoided at all costs. Buy yourself some good taps. Yes, they are expensive, but believe me, you break one off, you struggle through. You know, you want a good tap. It really makes the job a whole bunch easier. Well, let's see if I'm lucky. There we go. Nice. That'll work. And just FYI, the legs of the stand attach here and here. And when I was setting this up, I made sure that the exhaust port sticking out or the intake port wasn't going to hit one of the legs, because being a flathead cylinder, it hangs over the side quite a bit. All right, so that one fits. Let's see if the other one fits. Perfect. Very good. All right. I think the hard part is done. I could probably bore these now. All right, this is my old quick way cylinder boring machine. Boy, I bet I've owned this thing at least 10 years, maybe 15. Got it off of eBay. I forget what I paid for it, $400, $600. Certainly no more than 600. When I got it, I pulled the cover off of the gearbox over here, which I'm fixing to do in a minute or two. You know, and of course it was loaded with sludge. It hadn't been cleaned or oil changed in, I don't know, decades probably. And then last year, I pulled the boring bar out of it and polished it up a little bit and smoothed it off and changed the felts inside here. And there's a big spring and bearing in here. And the tension on the spring puts tension on the bearing, which keeps the bar centered. And it would take a great deal of force to unseat that spring and move the taper bearing off the center. A tremendous amount of force. But anyway, here it is. Of course, I had to take it off of the stand to drill the holes in the bottom of the mounting plate for the K-model cylinders. So as long as I've got it off, and as long as it's been 10 years since I've been inside here, I thought I'd pop this cover off, take a look around in there and change the oil probably. This thing is heavy, it's hard to move, I don't like picking it up. And interestingly enough, the instructions say that if you haven't used it in a while, before you start boring, you should lay it on its side to allow the oil to reach to the upper ends of this thing. Of course, I never do that because the son of a bitch is heavy. But anyway, let's pop this cover off, take a look and see what's inside there. There was one gear in here, and the gears are held on the shafts with taper pins. And there was one gear in here that was cracked where the taper pin went through. And I've always been a little worried that it was going to fall out and jam in something and, you know, screw this thing all up. But it's been, you know, 10 years or more since I've noticed that, and nothing's happened since, so I assume it's going to be okay. But you never know. And I probably made the gasket that's in here, if there is a gasket. And I'll probably have to make another one. I was hoping not to have to pull the wheel off, but I guess I will. Yep. Ooh. I see some cracked, broken shit down in there. Uh-oh. See that crack way down in there? I can't hold the camera, hold the flashlight, focus and point all at the same time. But there's something cracked down there. It looks like yikes! Broken fucking shit down in there. Didn't see that coming. Tune in next week while we try to get the boring bar boring again. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I am out of here.